Welcome back to the podcast. And today we are joined by another great guest. I've known this individual for a few years now, and we had some good time together back in the first Nexus Con. So I'm delighted to welcome Reed to the podcast.
Thanks, Lewis. Thanks for having us. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, likewise. So most that will know we do different segments of the podcast, and this one is really designed to tell the stories of individuals who have gone above and beyond and excelled within their own career to be able to tell that story. So hopefully it can inspire others to take similar trajectories or even get more individuals into the space, which obviously we'll probably talk about at some stage is one of the biggest pain points in the building automation market. Let's start with introductions. Reed, I'm sure there won't be many that don't know who you are, but for those that don't, can you tell us a little bit more about you and kind of what you do in your current role?
Yeah, for sure. So, Reed Powell, I work in the Pacific Northwest in the U.S. For a contractor called MacDonald-Miller Facility Solutions. We're a design build firm and optimize. So, we'll design a building, we'll build the building, and then we will service that building for however many years that we're in partnership with the owner or the facility manager. From like a scale perspective, about 1,500 employees, service north of 3,000 buildings, and do some of the biggest construction in the Northwest, but very regionally focused, so not a national or international scope of customers.
Got it. Again, for most that might not know who MacDonald-Miller are, one of the leaders, you'd be biased and say the leader when it comes to the West Coast in terms of construction, then also on the automation side.
Yeah, I think regionally we have are fortunate to have some really awesome customers that want to continue working with us and like what we do. One of the reasons I like working here is we're regionally owned, employee owned, and do what we say we're going to do, and that's just led to these like 50-year plus relationships with our clients, and so you get to be friends with them and help them build their buildings or service them, transition them between tenants and things of that nature. So yeah, typically willing to try things on the bleeding edge, even though it's bloody and hard. Whether that's in a construction process, doing lots of prefab, or on service, starting to play with things like fault detection and how do we move towards condition-based maintenance. So kind of the whole spectrum. I definitely, for my own career, have focused on that service side of the business and what are we doing post-construction. So that's where my expertise would lie. Side of work, I like living in the Northwest. We've got a great mix of climate, get all four seasons here. Super good access to the outdoors, and so those are some things outside of Mac that I like to do.
Heard that you're a big biker. You like mountain biking.
I wouldn't say I'm very proficient, but I like it. I like the decompression you get while you climb up the hill and chat with your friends, and then you get the adrenaline rush on the way down, and it's a good post-work activity and something you can do pretty much year round here.
Yeah, that's how I would describe my skiing ability, to be honest. It's a passion, but in terms of ability, it's lacking. Room for improvement. So let's start from the beginning, because when you look at the space that we're in, right, like obviously different lenses in terms of what you do, what I do and my firm does, there's an incredible amount of individuals in this space that tend to just quote unquote fall in the space. I'd love to get your take in terms of like how it started for you, in terms of you found MacDonald-Miller, because you've been there now for 10, verging on 11 years now, where it all started.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to have found MacDonald-Miller. Like very specifically, my older brother is a mechanical engineer. He's my older brother, so I worship the ground that he walked on. So I was dead set on being a mechanical engineer as well. Didn't do lots of introspection on like if I would actually like that job or not. So I'm at university going to engineering classes and then realizing, oh, I don't think I like this very much, but had learned enough about mechanical engineering. My then brother-in-law, who'd been part of the family since I was in sixth grade, also a mechanical engineer, had graduated. So it was very much in my face of that's what's going on. I think at the time, I thought if you got a computer science degree, that you would be coding for 40 years. That would be your career. You'd be at a desk coding, not talking to people. And I knew that wasn't for me. So I'm trying to decide, like, where do I line up? Whole time knowing that I wanted to work in sustainability. Because I'm 18 going, well, if I have to go to work 5 days a week, and it's not just a summer job, or it's not just after school, a couple days a week, what am I going to do that I can feel good about, contributing my life to? And so I had landed on sustainability, grew up going out into the outdoors constantly. And so that was outdoors and climate were important to me. And so then I started looking for, like, where does mechanical engineering and sustainability intertwine? And it does all over the place throughout the entire industry.
Not many people highlight that. It's really interesting as like a unique selling point for more people to join the space. Like, it's such a mission driven, or could be such a mission driven market.
Yes. And so my next kind of naive jump was, okay, well, if I'm a mechanical engineer or I work somewhere in there, like, I'll just design net zero buildings. That's what I'll do. Like, great. And brother, fortunately, was like, hey, maybe you should, like, talk to some people, like, about how frequently net zero buildings are getting greenlit, and that you get to work on those sorts of things. Um, I do. I go buy a bunch of engineers coffee. We're chatting, and they're like, well, hey, the sales team or the financiers or the development team is really who's helping to make those decisions. And so on a leap of faith, I switched to getting a finance degree, and really locked in with MacDonald-Miller based on some of the programs they were running at the time with clients and local utilities, providing an avenue for actually funding out of New York to land with energy efficiency projects, and finance off the OpEx savings of running your buildings more efficiently, and that these green or mission driven investment funds could park their money in the real estate market, but specifically around sustainability. So it was, I think, when MacDonald-Miller were doing it, it was pretty new to the industry to do it in the private market, not the public market. And so they had a niche program, wanted to work in mechanical and real estate and sustainability, but had expertise or fledgling expertise, I would say, in finance and how those deals would come together and could help. And so that's where I started. That was the entry point to get into the industry. And so I would say it was really driven by that kind of sustainability aspect, and then the family ties to mechanical. Grew up in a construction family, but single family homes, not commercial. So, was familiar with that space, was familiar with real estate deals. And so I would say there was a decent amount of comfortability there. And at the time, there was a lot of uncertainty in, like, the solar or wind market, if you would think of, like, maybe the more you would see on a poster for sustainability. And I wasn't willing to tie my personal career to maybe some of that risk, but hey, mechanical engineering is super reliable, and these buildings aren't going away. Buildings have a life cycle of north of 100 years. And so that's a good place to say, hey, what am I going to go work on for my life? So that was the entry point to MacDonald-Miller, was the financing and energy efficiency.
Okay. So at what point did you get attached to Donald? Because for people that don't know, you studied, went to University of Montana State.
Mm-hmm.
So when did it merge?
That was 2014 or 2015. MacDonald-Miller MacDonald-Miller visits Montana State twice a year, because of the mechanical engineering program out there. It's super well respected in the states. It's a phenomenal program that's very HVAC focused. So you have some mechanical engineering degree or universities out there that might be very aerospace focused or stress analysis, whatever you might think, or MSU. It's very HVAC focused, and that's part of how the campus is built. They had an awesome facilities director, Dan Stevenson. He's a great guy. Helped do district energy out there with a centralized steam plant and shedding heat load from some of the lab spaces over to the business buildings. And we're lucky to have some talent on board at the university. There was real life examples of how can we be more sustainable with buildings, with HVAC. And then that helped really focus the program on, okay, if there's real world learning that can happen on our campus, and the programs to start to get more and more centered around buildings and HVAC. And so it's a hot spot for recruiting, to find mechanical engineers, project managers. Um, I would be the one off, right? The person from the finance department that's like going over to the recruiters saying like, hey, tell me about sustainability, tell me about what you do in performance contracting. I would love the opportunity to work there. And so I started as an intern, just working summers, and super fortunate to get partnered with the one of the executives at the time. His name is Perry England, who was doing that finance. It helped set up the deals, brokered them with the utilities and the private entities and the financiers, and was kind of the mastermind of like pulling all those disparate parties together for us. A huge boon for me to get to be able to follow that individual around, for 2 summers, and just get to work on any of the special projects that Perry needed. I got to work on, and then he was very gracious and let me go to every single meeting he went to. Um, so I got to learn kind of trial by fire.
I was going to say big mentorship there, straight into the deep end. How much of that, the finance element, is used in the day to day? Because when you look at the mechanical, the HVAC side, that's naturally day in, day out what you're going to be focused on outside of controls. What about the finance piece?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that was the entry point, and then as I learned like what I'm interested in, and developed some strong skills there where I could add lots of value for McDonald Miller and for clients, wasn't actually finance at all. Additionally, like the level of finance work that needed to be done once the systems were set up was pretty low. So if I had wanted to work and utilize like some of my like any modeling, financial modeling skills like that, I would need to go work at a banker and be an investment banker. But I think was foundational in understanding how businesses operate financially, profit and loss statements, how these deals come together, how utilities are getting funded, and then reciprocating funds out there. So I think super foundational, something I didn't have to like learn. Most that you maybe would see would be more traditional of someone like executing within the business and then all of a sudden has responsibilities that are more financial at a company, and then learning those mechanics. That was something I was able to kind of bring in and just know inherently through the educational path that wouldn't be standard for mechanical. So that was convenient, but it's not a skill outside of like basic accounting that I use today, and understanding balance sheets and debits and credits and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So if I'm correct, 2017, you then land your first full-time job with McDonald, as a program manager. And for context, then where are we now? Like that's 8 years ago, maybe a little bit more. You've gone from program manager, which again, keen to learn more and unpack that. Operations manager, leading both smart buildings and the controls team. I think it's 6 teams or disciplinary teams within that. Walk us through being that first job as the program manager and then eventually continuing to climb the ranks through MacDonald-Miller, because it looks like one, you've got the tenacity and desire to do it, but also MacDonald-Miller really promote that from within.
I think both things are true in that situation. So in between my internships, I had pitched to Barry at the time, who I would say would be like one of the kind of great visionaries at MacDonald-Miller of like, where do we need to be as a business in 5 to 10 years to meet our clients' needs and help us, be prepared, whether that's with skills or with business structure, to help our clients with what they're in anticipating their needs. Perry being a visionary, he would always love like a good pitch, and so I had asked, hey, what can I do while I'm at school to work for you and keep this connection alive, but also continue my learning and deliver value to you. And so he would kick me projects throughout the year, and so I worked probably on a weekly basis for MacDonald-Miller through both of my final years of school. And that was a great way to keep the connection alive, and then put us in a place where at post, I'm graduating, I have completed, two full-time summers, which for us would be like beginning of May through end of August, 40 to or more hours a week, and then working those two throughout the winters as well on a part-time basis. It put me in a place where I could actually pitch. I told Perry, I said, "Hey, I would love to work here full time," and that was less about the financing deals or the time. What I came back was like the people. It's a big enough company where you get like all the perks of working at a big company, right? Super lucrative benefits and job security, but also at the same time, like full open door policy with the executive staff. Like as an intern, you get to go shadow the executives and go to their meetings and ask them about their day-to-day job. And you get to do that with any job at the company. And so, like learning. And so I think I shadowed, like 40 plus people at my first summer. And I know I probably was getting annoying at some point and asking too many questions. But I just really loved that aspect of like you get to have a voice, and then you get to learn, and people are like willing to challenge you, and then you can challenge back, and it's healthy in that way. And so it felt like a place that you can like be mentored, learn, but then also have an impact and like have that be tangible outside of just your individual work. So that, I go through my internships and I've decided, yeah, this is a place I want to work. I want to live in Seattle. I pitched to Perry like, hey, we have this fault detection program that we've started that came out of performance contracting, doing measurement and verification. So if you're familiar with the industry, all those things sound familiar. And we're trying to use software to do measurement and verification. We're too early. The software is not totally right for the market, whether it's from a price point or a complexity standpoint. Things weren't all in the cloud yet, so that there's some just timing variables there. And so we're trying to figure it out. We believe in the why for performance contracting, and are also one of my internship programs is to figure out like what are the pros and cons of doing it this way. And my recommendation was like, let's maybe pause on doing it for full out M&V. Not that we should, stop, but that shouldn't be our only thing. And we should really think about this from a condition-based maintenance standpoint, because at some point, there's potential the industry, has the Uber effect of facility managers or owners putting out on the internet, we have this issue that software told us about. Who wants to come out here and do it for the best price? So didn't want to be in the like New York taxi cab, medallion situation where we're totally caught off guard of used to help clients this way and now they want help in a different way. But that all led from like, rather than protecting the way we do our business to like, well, how do we learn that and just be partners with our clients along the way? Because, it does seem more efficient to start to use software to identify building issues. You can look systematically, you can do things remotely. So kind of all this stuff is happening. And my observation was, okay, all this is happening, but we don't have a position at MacDonald-Miller to help us figure that out. And it's enough things. There's enough things going on that you can't just be like, hey Perry, as you're running these three businesses, can you just tack on like starting this fourth business? And so my pitch was, hey, can I be the program manager? Which was wide ranging at the time. I'll do all your technical sales support, your marketing materials, our go-to-market strategy, kind of anything and everything. So personally, like working my best to not be designing buildings as an engineer, reading, getting all the way down into energy codes, like not my passion from a technical standpoint. I like working with people. I liked working with the software side of the house. And so definitely made some pitches that I thought aligned with my passions, but was a need for the company. And so lucky for me, they took a swing on that, and I was able to come on full time and work on that kind of wild world.
It's really interesting to hear that you were a pretty early adopter of FDD, to be honest. I think outside of the vendors creating the tools, I can't think of many construction, general contractors, mechanical contractors, whatever contractors, actually having a person or a team focused on FDD. There's still companies right now that that's still trying to figure that piece out.
I think we paid the price dearly, my guess is uh, like when I was seeing James and Brad from Nexus earlier this month, we were joking it'd be like very interesting to know like all the different contractors, whether it's consultants or M&Bs or construction contractors like us, um, tried this and put lots of smart people into building out on top of platforms like SkySpark or building out on platforms on top of like Iconics, who understood the end goal, but we were all too early and like how much was lost along the way because we were those early movers. Um, so we were had standardized on a software called Iconics at the time, which was the leader at the time, came from SCADA. Microsoft was using it. We had partnered with Microsoft on a couple projects. Um, it's a really robust set of software for something that doesn't need to be so robust. And so there's a great team over there at Iconics, but there's a bunch of contractors out there who I think were trying to figure this out in those early days. Because of where the industry was at, you ended up having to do lots of the building, and like that's not our core skill set. We don't employ programmers. I want to be the customer of that software. I don't want to build. Just from a business standpoint, if we're going to sell regionally, we can't fund software that you need to sell globally to have it all pencil out financially.
Yeah, which is interesting because I think Tritium, they build software or products to be like 50-60% ready. And then there's like you or whoever's using it would then add like the 30-40%, but maybe on the Iconics version or others, doesn't quite work.
I think where that fall, like if Iconics or others, right there, if they're used to that kind of SCADA or a manufacturing standpoint, that industry is prepared to go from that 50%. They'll do the next 50% or 60-40 to get it to work at that specific application, that snowflake of a building, whatever you may say. But when it comes to fault detection, it's not a standardized line item in someone's construction budget or operating budget. This is a net new of, can we do this differently? And so when you go like, well, can we get 50% and then build the other 50%, all while you're partnering with clients and saying like, we think this is the right way to go moving forward. That becomes a hard process to go through. You have to have some really, say, aggressive clientele who understand that vision just the same way you do, and are willing to go through those learning paces. So like a Microsoft would be a great example, and Google is super early mover here. They have enough real estate globally where they can start to say, yeah, let's do it. It becomes tough for your mom and pop shops. We're a regional contractor and we work with a ton of great people who own 3 buildings. So they're not down to walk that other 50% with you. And so the industry definitely needed to progress to where like MacDonald-Miller and the end client can buy something that's closer to that 90% or even 100% ready to rock, and you don't need a programmer on staff to work with it.
Makes sense to me. Okay, well let's switch it up. That was an interesting piece. So you joined as a program manager. Now you're an operations manager, and I want to get to that what you're doing day to day now in a little while. When you join a business, I think a lot of individuals who start within any industry, but let's say within controls or within construction, some may not have their career mapped out. From your side, like how close have you got to mapping out like this is where you want to be and this is where you're going to go? Because you've obviously gone through the ranks with Donald-Miller, and now you're leading and responsible for the largest team that you've ever been responsible for.
I think that's currently we're sitting at like right around 60 folks that I'm responsible for, which is a huge honor. It is awesome. It's been super cool over the last couple of years getting to work with larger groups, and rather being like a direct manager, getting to support other people leaders has been a really cool opportunity. Grateful MacDonald-Miller's been continuing to willing to take some risks with me. As far as like a career map standpoint, didn't have one, besides like I want to get in the right spot. I like want to work at a place that if I show up, I want to show up every day. And that goes back to like, if I'm in the sustainability space, I can feel good about like problems I'm working on, intrinsically, about if I look back in my 60s and say, what was it? So that part kind of settled. So I got that part of the career down, but like, what will I do? What might my job title be? Um, didn't have any of that mapped out, but what I did kind of have as a guiding light is, uh, I should constantly be, and I don't know what book or podcast, or if it was my mom or my dad or, uh, one of the early mentors at MacDonald-Miller. I don't can't credit anyone with this, but I'm sure it came from somewhere. Uh, is I should just be designing my job away. Constantly, my goal should be to eliminate my position. Um, and so I'm just trying to solve problems and have them not come back. And by doing that, I free myself up to have capacity to go work on the next problem or next challenge or next opportunity, for us as a business. And then through kind of that mindset, there's always more to work on. There's always more we could do. And it's just about pacing. And so if I can work at a decent clip and be designing my job away, that means in 12 months I get to work on a whole new set of things. And that, along the way, that has morphed to a different job title, or more formal, organization structure. But that, I think the philosophy would stay the same. Like, as a program manager, like, how do I design all the systems, and whether that's people, processes, technology, whatever it may be, so that my job is eliminated. And that philosophy, I think that's where the kind of career map comes into. And then, I do know this is one of my mentors at the company. His name's Rory. He had always mentioned, like, hey, you just want to be ready whenever the next opportunity comes up. So that paired well with the philosophy of, like, if I've designed my job away, and delivered positive results, and the company says, hey, we have a need over here. Hey, Reed has just, he's actually coming up with more air, and he's got capacity since he's, fixed these problems that he hasn't designed himself into the system from. That's not job security to me. Job security is like being ready for the next opportunity. So pairing those two things together is, as opportunities come up, I've been a competitive candidate for them, and been able to say, hey, the rest of the business isn't going to fail over here because I've moved, because we have put together solid teams or solid processes, to continue on.
That's such an interesting thesis, because when you think about individuals that have your background, and again, it's not about the organization or them, but often when you look at individuals, that they can get pigeonholed into being a project manager or to being a technician. And that might be because there isn't infrastructure internally at that organization to develop them, or it's because they're so good at what they do, the organization that has them on board can't hire quickly enough, or doesn't have the capacity to hire more individuals, that they can level this person up. And I'm thinking about your sharing. It's clear that you've had some phenomenal mentors. Are there any pivotal moments during this last 10, 11 years at MacDonald-Miller where you think, wow, that really propelled my career, or I wouldn't have got there without XYZ?
Definitely, I think, there's been lots of folks, and so would hate to leave anyone out, but
We can just
for
focus on pivotal
no,
moments.
no, but I think, it's somewhat related. So I think of kind of like four folks that have, been defining for me, whether that's like they've provided access, or led by example. I would say, like, going back to like the talking through the internship, like Perry like taught me the value of like having a vision, or like knowing someone who does, and then being willing to be the cheerleader or the magnet, or the person that's willing to come back to that, and that you have to say the thing, north of 14 times for it to really resonate. You can't just lay it out once. And so, I can't even put a candle to what Perry can do as far as like looking out as far as industry need. What I have learned is I can be a great partner with him in operationalizing that, and that would be something that I learned, from Rory, who's just like that guy executes. He can take a concept, an idea, a risk, a problem, and line out roles and responsibilities, how we're going to tackle it as a team, get people motivated around that. Um, his willingness to mentor like met really well with like where I was at in my life. With I had a lot of time to give to work, very passionate about trying to solve some of these problems. Um, I don't know why he didn't decline more of the meetings, but I would send him meeting invites for 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. And I would just show up with my list of, 20 questions, 50 questions. And it could be about anything. He never told me no. It would be about financials in the business, or why do we set up, org structures a certain way, or how do clients buy, or is a guaranteed maximum price, contract structure. And so, got this opportunity with, a brilliant person who was willing to dedicate the time. And then I would show up, do the legwork of the questions and the notes, and probably did that for like 4 years, at least on a weekly basis. And so got this accelerated learning path. And so the time he was willing to put in was huge. It's huge. And especially now, like for me being in some of the roles I have been, even have a greater respect for that time he put in. Because I would be sitting there in his office, when he showed up. My goal was to beat him there. So that was huge. Our CFO was someone I shadowed as an intern. She's an awesome leader, like understanding people and putting humans first. And so I like moving fast. She did a great job of like, hey, Reed, here are some ways that you could maybe slow down or make sure you're valuing all things. And so that Stephanie taught me a ton there. So that's been helpful. I mean, even from like when I was starting my career, I would call her and be like, hey, you signed me up for this meeting tomorrow where I'm presenting. What's the dress code? Like, and she would talk me through like, hey, you should stop wearing a tie. Like people don't wear ties here. Like it would maybe make you more relatable. Or yeah, you should grow out your facial hair so you don't look like you're 18. Just she's a human, and I super appreciated that. So she's a great mentor, and probably the fourth would be my parents as a duo. Super good role models for me, and just understanding like you have to be your own best advocate. And then they ran their own business. I used to work for them, and so I did have that familiarity with like get to talk. If you talk to the decision makers, usually decisions get made. So definitely they've been a super good resource and kind of guidance for me as you navigate through work. But yeah, I couldn't stress enough having some opportunity to have mentors that have different expertise across the group in different perspectives is pretty invaluable.
Yeah, I wonder what the CFO would say. Now, for those who aren't watching this, I've recently just shaved, so I also look about 18.
Yeah. She just retired last year after helping, triple our business over her 20 plus years. She's awesome leader, and she gets to go live in Montana and look at the mountains every day while she drinks her coffee, and I'm stoked for her.
I imagine that's probably your dream as well when you retire.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad about that at all. That'd be cool.
So, what I want to talk about now is you've touched on it there. You're leading a pretty large team within any organization, but within a construction contractor, especially within a controls division. The way in which I see it as a quote unquote almost like a services business or a contractor, you tie up people element, the processes, and the technology, whether it be hardware, so like controls or other equipment, and then you're obviously talking about DD or software. How do you balance these elements in leadership? Because that's, in my mind anyway, and again, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes because I haven't led a team of that size. That must be one of the biggest challenges.
I think step one is like showing up every day, because I make tons of mistakes. But if I just make sure I'm there tomorrow to like work on adapting, that would probably be the most helpful. I would say like something I've been able to bring to each role that's been helpful is personal organization. Just knowing my to-do list, what are my priorities, being able to reshuffle those so that I can support others and remove roadblocks accordingly. Balancing people, process, and technology. I feel like it comes in waves. personally, like you might work on the people side for a while, and typically that's about, like, my opinion, like getting the right butts and right seats, which is a quote from the Get a Grip book, or Traction, but both by the same group of authors, just written differently. That's essentially required reading at our company. We run our meetings based on that group structure. We do our annual planning based on their recommendations. Something they talk about is right butts and the right seats on the bus. Everyone knowing their roles and responsibilities. I feel like if you get those things right, then the things like process or technology start to click into place. Maybe if you're like joining a team though that like the technology is super sideways on or something, like, yeah, and maybe you do have to jump straight into that and make some temporary roles and responsibilities decisions that aren't for the next 10 years, but they're for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
But we do like a couple things at MacDonald-Miller that I think are really helpful here, which is people managers. We cap that at like 12. If you have more than 12 people, you're probably starting to do a poor job mentoring, coaching, and supporting those individuals. And so we look at that from like a headcount perspective. Like, what do you have a capacity to do to be a solid leader, regardless of where you're at in the organization? We keep that structure the same. The ideal range is like 6 to 8. That's where like the highest quality is done. Depending on the individual or the leader, that can feel the same at 10, or depending on the team members and their tenure, that can feel the same at 10 or 12. But that's something we focus on, which really makes sure that every leader has capacity to also be an individual contributor when needed, or really be planning for the team and looking 6 months, 12 months out. Next is like do a decent amount of preaching of like your job as a leader is to remove roadblocks for your team and facilitate their success. And so if you take that mindset to like, okay, my job is to remove roadblocks. Someone comes to you with a process, issue. Hey, we're doing X, Y, and Z this way. If we did it this way, we think that would be better. Okay, facilitate some additional discussion. Make sure you have the right buy-in from the different teams. You vetted the idea. Okay, your job as a leader is to make that happen. Make that process change. And our executive staff does a good job of giving you the autonomy and authority to make those decisions so that you can remove roadblocks quickly. I don't think I would be successful if I was at a company where there was like more layers of decision making or authority. So I think the company has done a good job of structuring that. So we're a big company. I am a part of that, but I have the authority and autonomy to like make decisions which allow us to support all the teams that I'm responsible for supporting. Right? If they're not successful, I can't be successful. Did I hit it for you, Lewis, on the balance there, or maybe I could?
Yeah, no, I thought that was great. I think there's, like you said, there's waves, especially when there's different trends within the market. For example, although you're on the service side, you could have a big pump on the construction bid and plan and spec and win more projects. So that may mean that the team setup is slightly different, or you have to take on different responsibilities, which I imagine most operations managers will have to do that. One point that I wanted to talk about was challenges. I think it's clear, anyone that we speak to, whether it's yourself on the contracting side, or it's a vendor, or even an MSI at SI, one of the challenges is hiring. You've obviously done, MacDonald-Miller have got some great people in the team, but outside of hiring, where would you say some of the biggest challenges have come up for you over the last few years?
Well, hiring has been a big one. I think like relating to it comes in waves. When the opportunity came up to work with the controls team, not just our fault detection approach, which is also construction. We're 11 people short based on what our customers were asking for. We needed 11 other trained, qualified professionals to do controls, ramming, verification in the field, sequence writing. Like that was the whole focus, was getting us staffed appropriately, getting the right management team in place to support everyone, whether that was with onboarding, in-field training. And so that was a wave, that was a focus for me for a full year, was just staffing, recruiting, getting new people managers into places that could support individuals at that 6 to 8 person range. Got us to that point, allowed us to have the capacity to start saying like, well, what technologies are we using, and do we like all of these, and are they fitting our customers' needs, and then do some evaluation there, because we had the capacity to do it, because we weren't all running full tilt at 7,000 RPMs just on client requirements. We could do some internal reflection and spend time and work there with smart people that aren't just working client facing. And the same exact thing works with process. So looking at the team and saying, okay, we have someone who's like very process oriented, and now they have capacity that they can spend a couple of days a week helping us do some revisions to our standards. Perfect. Oh, hey, we've got a whiz who loves going through all the manuals from a technology standpoint. Let's do that. Let's make some evaluations. Throw products in comparison charts and make some decisions, but couldn't do those things until we had the people right. As far as like challenges side of hiring and the structure and the people process side, I do think that technology one is a huge one. As the industry tries to figure out like what's the next generation, like we went from pneumatics to DDC. Okay, we've done that. What's the next iteration of controls, and does that look like more defined standards? Does it look like advanced supervisory control? Is it cloud interactivity to make sure you're matching up to weather patterns? There's all these great ideas out there. They're all fairly new in implementation. They're not new concepts or new ideas. Much smarter people than me 10 plus years ago were saying we would be doing this, and it's actually happening later than they thought. The tough part is, as a business, knowing when your clients are ready for it and when you're ready for it, and do you have the right talent and expertise on staff, or the right vendors that you've partnered with to help those things become achievable. That's a part we were talking about at the beginning of FDD for us. So like knowing like, okay, do we get 50% of the product, and then we need to build the application specific thing for a client and do that rest of the 50%. It's not a talent that you usually have on staff at a construction company or a service company. And can you afford that person, or can you provide the right opportunity where that person gets to work on a team with peers and there's the right mentoring? If you really only need 2 of them, is that awesome for that person, or should they work at a tech company where they get to work on a team of 10 and get pushed and have better career opportunities? So I think that's a big challenge for any contractor working in the space of like wanting to bring the latest and greatest to your clients, but making sure it's reliable and that you have the talent to do it, and or the right vendor partner to help you deliver on that scope of work. MacDonald-Miller, we've kind of landed on that having the right vendor partner for that scope of work. We definitely do some customization and things on top of what our vendors are bringing us to get that extra mile for the client, or build better business insights for ourselves. It's a challenge to know where you're at in that space as the industry continues to adapt and change, and making sure you're on the edge, but it's not cutting both directions too deeply.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, the 10% rather than the 60%. That makes a ton of sense. What I like to do at every episode is a quick fire round, asking 4 or 5 questions. First thought that comes to mind.
Okay, let's do it.
We've done challenges, so I won't touch too much on that. But what is one of the trends that you're seeing in the smart building space that excites you?
Okay, so I think what's super exciting is a lot of applications and companies moving to something that's cloud first, or like architected with APIs in mind. And so all this interconnectivity that MSIs or master systems integrators have been working on is all of a sudden becoming easier. The life cycle cost of managing that integration is becoming easier. So we don't have to consult with clients and saying like, this is really complex and you need to make sure you have a bucket of money aligned every year for it. That bucket's gotten much smaller and it's gotten easier to do. So your time to value for your clients is easier. And if we even just think about it from our standpoint of like our enterprise resource planning software, our CMMS software, and now fault detection and getting all those things linked together, removing some like pretty massive roadblocks for achieving things like condition-based maintenance. And so I'm just excited that, the whole industry is leveling up, and those opportunities that, have been in conversation for years and years and years are just that much closer. And I think we'll start to see some really good return on time spent of being prepared to like work in that new world and make sure that we are doing condition-based maintenance with clients.
That's actually one of the biggest hiring trends right now. I posted about that recently.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, everyone's buzzing about AI, but condition monitoring individuals with that experience is one of the fastest hiring trends across the US right now. Best piece of advice you have been given.
I think two things. Again, sorry for not being able to reference the book it came from, but listen and learn before you lead. That's more about like just learning patience, but also making sure like you truly understand the situation. So I like that. It's also you've got 3 L's. I can remember it. So listen and learn before you lead. I will literally tell myself that in my mind if I'm in a meeting and I get excited about something, and I think we can maybe make a decision, which sometimes is the right application. But my job has changed, and it's really about supporting others. It's like, okay, take a step, listen, make sure I'm learning from the situation, not just listening to respond, and then you can better lead. So I really like that one. And then the other one is like, no one's gonna fight harder for you than you. Again, no idea where that should be referenced to, but that you have to be your own best advocate. I think that's a good reminder for me.
Is there any technology or tools that in your day-to-day work life you just can't live without?
Yeah, I balance. I live and die by my calendar. If you've seen Anchorman, like Ron Burgundy will read anything on the teleprompter, and if it's on my calendar, I will be there. And then, yeah, go for it.
You've just told cold callers exactly what to do if they want to get in touch with you.
That's true. Others is something like Trello, Asana, Microsoft Planner that works on desktop and on mobile. That's how I use, what I use for my to-do list, and so I can take notes on the go while I'm in a meeting. When I just have my phone, you can add a note with Siri, but then it's all there for you when you get back to the office, and you need to reprioritize and make sure you're doing the right follow-up. So just having a cross-platform to-do list is huge. So I know those are maybe like way too low level of like tools that I can't live without, but those are important to my day-to-day.
They are such game changers though. I say game changers, but I also say like the 1%. So they add so much value and just save so much time. I know AI note takers are table stakes now, but it just such an easy way to get into AI. Final question. Hopefully we'll have some of the areas that we've spoken about and will have been intrigued to take a similar path, or maybe even reach out to go into more detail. Thinking back to when you first started the space, someone wants to then join the space or wants to move into program management or operations management. What advice would you give them?
Well, first, it would probably be like a bit of caution. Like if you want a standard career path, I think we're still pretty early in this industry. So if you want, job 1 to lead to job 2 to lead to job 3, we're starting to see that develop in the space. But it's not as straightforward as, go to, I live in Seattle. So if you go to Boeing and, you're aerospace engineer 1, you're aerospace engineer 2, 3, all the way up to level 5. That doesn't necessarily exist. So I would say if you want to be in this space, you have to be willing to like deal with a little bit of the unknown like that. I like that part of it. So need to be a good self-advocate in that. To get into space, I think it's an awesome space to be in. I would recommend anyone to it because you do get that people, process, technology. You get to work on sustainability. For all the reasons I'm here, I would recommend that to others. To actually get into the space, I still think starting in mechanical design like decarbonization design if you wanted, but I would still almost recommend starting in mechanical design first so you get some of those foundations. Or project management for construction or specifically for building controls. Just knowing how to remove roadblocks, make plans, understand that, like those would be foundational to either gaining technical knowledge or the skills to solve problems, that then you could transition with some like tangential knowledge into the smart buildings space. If you felt like you're technical, it would be, okay, well, computer science, and then I would recommend you're looking for a job at a vendor building software for the space. I wouldn't necessarily recommend like go do the computer science and then try and go work for a contractor, because just the funding vehicles are different for how those businesses operate. I would say you'd be best positioned to go work at a vendor, and they're hiring, which is cool. People like Clockworks are hiring for smart people. Bueno's hiring for smart people.
Nice plug for some FDD players there, or
Yeah.
analytics players. Reed, thank you so much for joining me. I'm if not anyone else, and I've learned a ton, and there's so many nuggets in here that people can listen to and take away. I think what I'll do is I'll put your details, your LinkedIn in the show notes. If anyone
Perfect.
wants to connect with you, they can do. Once again, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Lewis. Super appreciate it. And I'd welcome connecting with anyone on LinkedIn and having a chat about the industry. It's an awesome place to be.
Guys.